He was my editor-in-chief when I was at Marvel years ago, and I don't know why he thought to put Scott and I together. But it was his idea because Scott is raised on providing full script, and I was raised on Marvel plot style, so it's really oil and water. And for whatever reason, he goes, "These two guys be good together," and it really didn't seem like it was going to be good together, especially early on, because Scott sends me the first script. Now, prior, I was used to working with Todd McFarlane on Spawn, as you probably know, and Todd, we worked so loose that he phoned me up and I'd take notes or record them on a microcassette and go from there. He was so loose. He'd say, give me 2 or 3 pages, Sam and Toys will be talking about this. Give me a little room on page 3 because I had a lot to say. And so when I got the first Court of Owls script, it was like 24 pages long story-wise, and just a stack of paper burned off my printer, from his script. And
it was like 52 pages.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I just couldn't believe my printer just kept going and going and going. I think I had to change the ink and everything. But so I wrote him an email and I said, I don't need all this, just send me the important stuff. And he's going, it's all important. And I go, well, that's not true. I just need this, and you give me the, and so that when I told him that, he came back beating his chest for all the accolades he had received, up until that point. And my wife's over my shoulder reading, him brag on himself. And she's like, who does he think he is? And so he writes me all this stuff, and then I go, I'm sure your parents are very proud. And he's such a sweet kid. He writes back and goes, yes, I come from a very supportive family. And I go, wow, I just kicked the kid in the nuts, and he doesn't even feel, he doesn't know it, So it didn't look like, it was gonna, especially for him. Me, I was telling my wife, I go, he doesn't know me from anybody, and he's just being protective of his work. And once he finds out I'm not going to drown his baby, that I'm going to pamper it and raise it right, I go, he'll chill out, No baby drowning. And, but that's because I'm older and a little more mature at that time. So, and that's exactly what took place, right? I'm sure you got plenty to add.
Yeah, no, I was an asshole. Very simple. I was just terrified. My experience was sort of like, I was lucky enough to break into comics. I'd always wanted to do it. I wanted to be a comic artist. And then I wound up falling into writing prose when I was in college because I felt like I wasn't good enough at drawing or any of that. And then when I found my way back into comics, it was after, I was so grateful to be in there. But I was like, it'll take me forever to make this a real career. And I was teaching and all this. And then all of a sudden, I lucked out, and they just put me on detective. They asked me if I wanted to do it and gave me the whole book, and I couldn't believe it. And so I was like, well, I'll do this, and then I'm sure I'll get fired. And then I did detective, really proud of it, was just getting comfortable. And then they were like, we'd like to hire you for another year. Would you be interested in switching over to Batman? And I was like, maybe, I don't know, that's like my dream job. And so I said yes, because I thought it was going to be Dick Grayson and Jock would do it, and it would be more of what we were doing. And all of a sudden they were like, no, it's going to be Bruce Wayne, and it's going to be with an artist that we've already hired. I knew who Greg was, he was already a legend, but still, I didn't know him. And then, and it's going to be #1, first time in 75 years. Now we do a lot more. We do a lot more Batman #1s now. There's been 4 or 5, maybe whatever, since ours. But that was the first one since the original, when they did it. So it was like, if you could make a nightmare scenario, the only thing was missing was that I had my clothes on, in a dream of coming out there, being naked in front of the con. But, so I was just living every single day in complete terror of I should quit, I'm not ready. It was imagine all you ever wanted to do was be an Olympic whatever swimmer, and then you learn to swim, and it's your first day in the pool, and they're great, let's go to the Olympics, and you're just I'm not good enough for this. So the only way I had any comfort was to write really, really detailed, because then I could imagine it really clearly in my head. So that's why I was so dickish about it, was just because I couldn't understand how to let go of it, because it was my comfort thing. But the funny thing is, Greg's 100% right. Our whole relationship, there was nothing Greg needed to learn from me, but what I really needed was I was desperate for somebody to show me what to do in comics. I had a lot of passion, I had a lot of ideas. Like, I cared about what I want to say. I'm coming very fully formed in that way because I have a trial by fire in books. So I came in very knowing who I was. But in terms of learning the craft and the medium and how to be a good partner, I was completely green. I didn't know anything. And my first editor, Mike Martz, who's our editor, was very hands off. He was just sort of he
But
had
it didn't
to.
take though, so it didn't,
Yeah, it was. I just mean, but he was I'd be like, Mike, do you have any suggestions? And he'd be like, yeah, you might want to change this font. And I was like, okay, but what about the whole story? What about And so I was just desperate for advice, and what I wasn't seeing at the time was Greg was to this day, Greg's the best mentor I've ever had on anything, whether, not just in comics, but in life. It's the truth. But it's true, I learned everything I know about comics from working with Greg, and I'm deeply grateful for him for being so patient with me, the most important rule I think that I learned was how collaborative. The joy of comics is collaboration. The joy of it is taking a trust fall and being how do you like to work? Well, if you like to work from Marvel style and I like, full script, then let me try and move towards you as much as I can so that you can shine. And then what I get back will elevate what I do. And it's like making something together with somebody that is just organic for both of you. And it took me a couple issues to really start to see that, and it was when we were doing that first issue, the Labyrinth one, where it flips around. That's where, yeah, that was the first time I was like, you know what? I love what he's doing. We're starting to get along, and he keeps saying, maybe if I just give him more room. And so on that one, I was like, well, here's kind of the dialogue and the idea is that he's really disoriented. If you can think of anything to do, and then he was like, well, what if we turn the book around? And I was like, that's the most brilliant. Of course, let's do it. And then DC didn't want us to do it at all. They this is where Bob was everyone's gonna look like a misprint, you can't do it. And he wrote this really impassioned
angry Italian letter.
Yeah. But he was he quoted all these philosophers and stuff, and then Steve Jobs and all these people.
Right, Steve Jobs, stay foolish.
And I was just what he said, ditto, ditto, ditto. And they finally caved, and then they let us do it, and yeah, that's from that. He's a shirt from that issue. But it was funny because then when the issue actually showed up, I got it first, and I thought it was a misprint because I hadn't realized you read it actually backwards, and I was like, oh shit, this is completely messed up. And I was like, oh no, that's what it's supposed to be. But then I wrote online anyone that gets issue 5, it's not a misprint. And then he called me up and he was like, take that down. If they don't get it, they don't get it. And I was like, okay.
And then I saw the issue myself. And prior to this, I had gone meticulously over it with the editor, where it returns a bit. But I didn't anticipate at one point you have to flip the pages in the opposite direction. I just didn't anticipate that, right? And so I was the Italian again. I'm like, fuck it. Right? I'm right ready to pick up the phone, and then I realized, and I'm like, this is even better, right? It is better, but that was a happy accident. I never thought of that. I thought you would continue to flip like that.
Except it was really funny when people didn't know lock screen and they were reading it digitally. That's what I saw. I was it was one of the people in the office who's older didn't understand lock screen. I saw them walking around the issue as it was on the ground, on their tablet.
And I was like, this is good to you. I said, because you want to offer an explanation, and I go, you know what? The smart kids will get it, and I'll explain to the dumb kids.
I was the dumb kid. But it was at that moment, I can't express how transformative that was for me, not just as a writer, but as a person, but also just, it was an inflection point in every way where you're I get it now. This is the beginning of my journey as a creator, a real comic book writer, and a life lesson. The more you give to your partner that way, the better this becomes. The more you trust them, the better the work comes back. The more you let go, the more it becomes yours, all of it together. And it was from that point all the way to metal, I was just always trying to grow in that direction. And
one of the ways it grew is because when you start to understand that things can develop organically. I would do something, whether it was using a circle as a motif or something like that. And it wasn't in the script, and then once he saw it, he started writing it into, you know, subsequent issues. And so a lot of that started to take place when we would put something together. So an idea would just start to grow on its own. And in one, the Death of the Family, where Joker's face was off and started to rot. So this is a pretty good example of what I'm talking about. And so I started to add flies around it, right? Because it's no longer refrigerated at the police station, so it started to rot and attract flies. And so then he started to write flies into the story, and it became a thing. And so at the end, because we were implying that Joker had made his way into the cave, and so at the end where you have the element on the screen, Scott goes, "Oh, I just need something extra to come up with anything." And so I just go, "I'll put a fly on the screen." And he goes, "That's perfect, that's it. So now you're still one. What is that? Because the Joker was in there, you know?" So that's something that never was in the first script. And as we went forward, you know, these things just developed sort of on their own by us fooling around, you know, just fooling around.
And I love Nick, like people I work with now, they're like, "Oh, you're so collaborative, you're so," and I wait, like I can imagine you sitting there being like, you know, it really was, yeah, like working with him, and it was funny, because I remember like there was so much I didn't understand, like, I also, like I didn't understand at that time, like things that are cool for a writer are not always cool for an artist.
Right.
Where like, I remember I was working with Jim Lee on Superman Unchained, and I was like, "Guess what, Jim? In this spread, every Batmobile in history crashes into Superman. Isn't that awesome?" And like, for me, that's like a 5-minute page, but it's like the coolest thing in the world.
And he said to me, "Is this guy fucking crazy?" There was actually a DC party. They rented out the bottom of a place, which was called, you know, whatever. And so it was all those guys who like worked with him, and we all going, "How can we kill him and get away with it?"
I had no idea. I was
Like
like,
it's murder.
"You guys want a drink?" And I was just like, so no, but it was a big growing experience, and I think, you know, the other thing you realize is like when you do it right, you become close, because, you know, I think the thing that really bonds us also as creators, even before we really got along, was that you care about what the story's about, and you explain to each other. That's what got Jock. Like that's, you know, I remember when my first gig with Detective, I didn't know Jock at all, and Mike Marks was like, "You'll never get him to do the book," and I flew out to San Diego on my own money and just to go meet Jock at San Diego and try and convince him to do Detective. And I sat with him at this bar, and I had never met him before, and I was trying to like keep up with him drinking beer, because I was like, he'll think, if you haven't seen him, he's like a big Englishman, and I'm not. And he was just like, you know, I was like, "He won't think I'm tough enough or Batman enough." But anyway, like, it was interesting because I had this whole pitch where I was like, "You get to draw the Joker, and you get to draw this, and it's gonna be so big, and it might sell this." And he really was just like, "What's it about though? Like, what is it about for you?" And it just like unlocked this thing. I'm like, well, actually, it's really about these fears we have about how, you know, Gotham is this antagonist that ultimately sees your worst nightmares and brings them to life. And whoever you are, it generates those things for you. And it's a theory of, you know, antagonism. And so then all of a sudden we started talking, and he liked it. So when you work with a great artist like Greg or Jock or a partner like Nick or whoever, and you share what it means to you, you're bonded over that thing. Like if they feel vulnerable to that same thing, we were talking about this just last night about like AI and the threat of AI and all this, but like ultimately, like what I go to art or stories for is like it's people reaching out to people being like, even if it seems insane, it's like DC Metal or KO, or it's those stories are still deeply about things that like matter to us. You know, death metal was, you know, at a moment when it felt like there was this huge war over what story is real about who we are and what's right politically in this, and saying it's okay, you know, within comics, if you love a story and it inspired you, it's all real. Like that story is in continuity, and that's kind of the matter. That's, you know, if it made you feel inspired and motivated you to go do good things in the world, then it exists. I don't care if it's not there anymore. And so again, like even if it's bonkers and it's Wonder Woman invisible chainsaw and that, it matters. And that's where you start with your collaborator. So you're bonded, like you both believe in this thing you're doing and you're vulnerable to each other. And you can't really be that way and not start to become friends. You know? Because you see it's scary. It's really scary, you know, to put stuff out.
Scared.
Well,
Never.
they don't blame him.
If the
If
fans
it goes
can't
wrong.
stand it, I go, he wrote it. I just do the picture, man, so that's who you go after right there.
It was funny because we got the pushback. But there've been, you know, now that the run is like is over, like things I think like you look back with rose-colored glasses a bit on like, but we had a lot of controversy the whole time we were doing it. Like even when I did Detective, I got a lot of hate about like you made James Gordon Jr. a psycho and Jim Gordon is a bad father, and then with I got a lot of hate mail, and then you know I just didn't put it out there. I didn't like publish it or that, but I got all those threats and all that stuff. And then the same with like Court of Owls. It was like, you know, people were very angry that we were giving him possibly a brother and changing his history, and also that it was sort of, you know, challenging Grant in their mind in sales, all this stuff. And then with Joker, it was like, oh, you know, you're making him a horror character. And then by the time we got to I think it was 0 Year or something, people were really mad. And people really liked it. Like it was that constant both. It was like it was doing really well and people enjoyed it and some people hated it. And that's fine. But like I remember they got particularly angry about around that time because they didn't want a new origin and they were like, fire Scott Snyder and and all that. And I remember calling him up and being like, God, this is, you know, kind of sucks. Like they really, really hate us right now. And he was like, mm-hmm. And I was like, you're seeing it too, right? And then I went and I searched his name and everything was just about how bad everyone felt that he had to work with me. It was all like, Greg, I feel so bad for that guy who used to work with that bastard, Scott Snyder. I was like, so, yeah, but it's always, but you make this stuff together and it matters to you and then you're vulnerable. You're a team putting stuff out that you care about and into the world that can be attacked. So, you know. That's why I feel like you meet somebody and you get along that way and then you stick together. I mean, I work with a lot of the same people over and over because we've become really close, but every now and then you'll meet someone new and try something and it really clicks, like with Nick on Absolute Batman. But we're really similar. I've known Nick a while, but with Greg, it's been like what I hope that you guys respond to. It's so funny you asked one question and that's it. It's like, I mean, this is all from your one question.
Yeah, well, it's less for me to do.
That's how you have to do all the dialogue in the goddamn.
I know. This is one balloon. This is all one word balloon. The funniest was when you pointed out like word balloons when you write Swamp Thing. That's when you realize how much you talk because the word balloons are orange. They're like hunter blades orange. So when you see it on the art, you're like, oh shit, I really talk a lot. I gotta stop. But what I hope you guys respond to about our partnership and partnerships in general with co-creators that work together a lot is that you really are part of our friendship, you know, like we are genuine I'm Frank too, like we're best friends. Like Greg and I text and talk all the time, like even when we're not working together. And I came to this con because he's at the con, like I'm excited to see him and catch up, and that's why I went to Denver, and you know what I mean? So you guys have been there and we've been through a lot together between I had less kids when I met him, we have been through a lot of, you know, family stuff, deaths in the family, all that. But, you know, you guys, it's in the work. Like, my fears of fatherhood are in the Joker story. My fears about depression and all of that are in 0 Year. And he knows that you guys have been with us through all of that stuff that he's gone through and I've gone through. And so it really is like, you know, we consider you guys that way. We see you at these cons sometimes and you're like, people are like, oh, I saw you 10 years ago at this. It's like, here's a picture of us from back then. And it really means a lot. It means a lot to us because we were talking about it last night. And it was like, we feel so grateful, honestly, you know, because we don't really, I mean, I know it sounds hokey or whatever, but
Yeah, let's go.
we don't really, you know, we don't go to these or show up for, you know, we're not always comfortable with like the, you know, adoration or that kind of stuff or whatever it is, but it's our chance to get to meet you guys and say thank you, and also for connecting with stuff that mattered to us and matters to us, and it feels very real to us to get to come and see you, as corny as that sounds. Like, I hope you feel it when you come see us at our booth and that stuff. Like, you know, we make things that matter to us, and you guys responding to it means a lot. So it's fun.
All right, you can talk now?
Yes, I'll turn my.
Why do you think your run has resonated like it has? You know?
Well, geez, that's the intangible thing, you know. I never have an answer. You know, Scott has an answer, you know, typically for it. But I'll give you the abbreviated version. He thinks it's because you guys can sort of sense, you know, our relationship as he just stated it, and then somehow that bleeds through in the work, and you guys somehow pick that up. I think we're just damn lucky that it turns out that, you know, we've done something that you guys like. But what I can say though is we've been able to do a lot of things that we wouldn't have been able to do if you guys didn't like our work so much and buy as many books as you did. Because the company, the only reason they bent out of our way for a lot of things is because we were making them money. You were making us money and them money. And so when we wanted to do something, you know, that they, you know, didn't think was a great idea, we could sort of push against them, you know, and I could throw in their face, you know, issue 5, Word of Owls, you know, and that was one of the most appreciated issues. Every fan that I've ever met has said that issue. And so when he would have an idea that, you know, they would particularly like, we were able to go, we have all the support behind us, you know, and so you guys are a real big part of why you got the story that you did. So I don't know how to answer your question. I'm just blessed and lucky, and wow, you caught lightning in the bottle, right? How did you do it? I have no idea. Just like I don't know why Bob Harris thought it would be a good idea to put us together, you know. So, but it worked out somehow.
Shit just works.
So yeah, and you know, it's an intangible thing because, like, I've been, you know, played in a lot of bands, play guitar, and I've always played with, you know, guys who were sort of on the same level, you know, musician-wise. And yet certain groups just click better together, even though everybody was equally proficient. So there's this intangible thing that takes place. I don't know what that is and why it is. It just, there's this something where they just click into place and it works. So I don't know what it is, but I'm grateful for it, and I'm grateful for all you guys for every time you went and picked up our books and supported us and allowed us to keep going, you know, and doing bigger, crazier, you know, wild things, you know. So thank you is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's those two things, like that one, I hope that you guys feel like you're a part of it, that we were pretty public about, you know, our friendship, and that you guys get to feel part of that relationship, and it's real, it's a real thing. And then secondly, I think, you know, we have the same priorities, which when it comes to story, which are, we both really, really care about doing the best we can, and all that matters is what's better for the story. We don't have egos about it. Like, if Greg has a better idea, drop whatever I was doing for that. And it's hard to find people like that, honestly.
Yeah.
You know, the grind of comics it can be a real grind. It is a real grind, and a lot of times, like, people get worn down, and they want to phone it in, or they don't. You know, nothing against that. Like, you know, I just mean to find someone else that's as passionate as you, like crazy as you are about, like, this has to be the best.
Crazy.
Yeah, well, it's like it had you like I'm a middle-aged dude who like cares this much about Batman. It's like crazy, you know. But it's like you gotta make it the best thing you could make it, no matter what. Every issue, always, you know, because you feel like this is the dream job, and there's hundreds and thousands of people out there that would kill for it, and you get to do it. So don't take it for granted. And when you meet somebody else that feels that way and goes to the mat the way he goes to the mat for every panel,
And
I'll erase panels that are already perfect. And like,
And also, you know, you guys, comics aren't cheap, you know, and so I'm always, you know, cognizant of that going, you gotta give them their money's worth, you know, they gotta be, you know, and so there's been times where, you know, I spent a day, a splash page one was in particular where, you know, the Justice League were fighting a giant robot, and I didn't like it, you know, and my wife said, no, it's great, and he said, no, it's great, and I go, it just doesn't have that certain something, and I scrapped it and I did a new one, and they both went, oh, that is better. And so that's where I'm always reaching to make sure that if I'm not satisfied with it and I think it can be better, I don't deliver it. You'll never see that stuff. It gets torn up or shoved in a drawer. You see the best I can come up with. Not that it's the best thing ever, but it's the best I can come up with. And so I always make sure to give you guys the best I could possibly muster. And if I burn days and I have to work more hours, doesn't matter to me. I will do what it takes. We'll put the deadline. Well, then I guess I gotta work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week in order to do both. Because I won't shortcut you guys because comics are expensive.
Yeah,
So,
we have that same, we all are that way. I mean, like, and I do think that it kind of changes a lot. Like, you know, comics has gone through a really robust period the last few years until like a year or two ago, where from like 2010 or 11 to now, there's been a lot of things like inflating comics. Like there was first, both companies got bought by parent companies, Warner Brothers and Disney. And then, you know, big superhero movie boom brought a lot of money into that. And then there's like, you know, streaming, there's the success of The Walking Dead, and all of a sudden all these streaming companies are making deals with all these comic companies, there's more money to do indie comics. Basically what I'm saying is there's been a lot of, like, sort of less pressure to make it's been an easier market in a lot of ways for multiple years and 2020, what weird is this, like, it was peak years, 2020 and 2021 for DC and Marvel, because people had disposable income and wanted to go back to their kid hobbies. And so you saw this huge spike in variant cover sales and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, that's true. But so like, the point is like now we're back to the tough market, but I love this market as much as it's hard, because it goes back to the priorities that like we really love too, which is, you know, if you write comics like streaming, where it's decompressed and it goes on for, you know, 13 issues, 14 issues, because it's more immersive and that, it doesn't work in this market. You have to kind of re-embrace the joys of what make monthly buying fun. Cliffhangers, reminding people why the character's awesome every single issue, what the fuck moments that make them excited to wait and talk to their friends and bring them in. Reminding them what's going on so that they don't feel dumb for not remembering it, because nobody remembers 3 days ago, I don't remember, you know, so all of these kinds of things, we always, you know, old school, we're like, you see them happening again in big ways right now in a lot of the big successful books, from Transformers and G.I. Joe and Ultimate Spider-Man does it really well, and you just see it. And so there's a kind of re-embracing of fundamentals, and I think that's part of what we get along with so well on when we do a book together. We have the same things. We just want to give you more than you expected in like every issue, because I remember what it's like being like, I don't have enough money to buy the comics I want, you know?
I would say from the outside looking in, neither one of you ever took an issue off. You know what I'm saying? You know, getting back to, you put your all, and I think the fans see that. And I think that's getting back to what you were talking about, why your one resonates, it's that, you know?
I think there's part of that is true, because I've talked with Todd McFarlane, from the brothers, and we've talked about like why there hasn't really been like the next wave of really popular artists, and he thinks, and I probably have to agree. Kevin Smith also said it to me, because the body of work goes. You look at you've got, you know, speaking of me, you know, I have these long runs. You know, the shortest run is a year's worth of material, and you know, that's more of an old school. I'm old school approach. You know, to where you're a workhorse and you're there and you're delivering, and you have a body of work where a lot of the newer guys. And I'm not saying it's a mistake, because, you know, I sometimes go, you know, I've spent most of my life working instead of doing enjoyable things outside of work. And so, but a lot of the younger guys, they take the time and they go and do other things, you know. So maybe they're the smart ones and I was the stupid one. But but to your point, I think that's also what has kept me sort of relevant still after all these long years. That, you know, people still are looking at my work, which I'm grateful for.
But I think artists today, because I know they're inspired by that from you, because I'm friends with, like, for example, like Dan Mora, right? Dan Mora makes a conscious effort to be on a book. Like, he really wants to have like a month. He doesn't want to take months off, you know. And he's very fast.
To me growing up, I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but for me, like I followed artists obviously because I'm an artist, and so I had my guys that I expected to be there on the stand, and when I go to my shop and I open it up, and it would be the guy that was just such a disappointment, you know, because it just wasn't the same, you know. Because my favorite guy wasn't in the book, and it was such a miserable feeling. I always said, I don't want to do that to my fans, because maybe they would feel miserable like I used to feel miserable. Even if it was one issue off, he used to really pull me out. And so I go, I don't want to do that to them because I didn't like it done to me. So that's another reason why I just keep pounding. But I will tell you on Spawn, if there was even a deeper reason, and that's because when I took over on Spawn, Todd was getting all this hate mail directed at me, and so and he publishing it, which is knives in my chest. And I go, you're killing me. And he goes, oh, don't worry, it'll make the people like you come to your defense, and it'll turn around. So, but my mentality was, I'm gonna be in their face every month, right? I'm never gonna give them a break from my work. And so even when I got married, I had to go on my honeymoon and stuff. I did that issue downsize, like half-size pages, just be in your face. I know I worked before, so it took me half the time because I did it all downside. So I was able to. Yeah, no. But I was able to do that. I get married and take my honeymoon and not miss the issue. So it was out of spite. Yeah, it was out of spite.
It is though. I mean, I see it now. It's special. Like I see Hayden doing it too, Hayden Sherman. And you see artists and coming back to the idea of creating a body of work on a thing. And like Nick is really conscious of it on Absolute Batman, even though he's not as fast. He can't do every issue. He's very careful about when I take an issue off. We pick sort of the artist together. He really picks who it is, and I write it very differently for that person than I write for him, and it's a special kind of thing. So it doesn't feel like, oh, it's this. But I think there is something really important about what you're saying about creating a body of work that's yours, and that people, come to and see, oh, you can tell this whole story.
Because a lot of guys are doing 4 or 6 issues and then switch to something else. What is that? I got my stacks at home, right? My collaborative effort between creators, and those long runs. That's what you remember. I don't remember the little piecemeal things, right? I remember the long runs.
But it is crazy. Like we didn't take a month off, either of us, from Batman for almost 6 years. Like every single month of the year. I can think of one issue that you didn't draw, but it wasn't because you took time off. It was because you were jumping ahead to the next arc for Becky when she did one. But I mean, it's not, when you think about it, it's like we got on Batman, and then every single month we were doing the next issue for 6 years. You know what I mean? Which is wild when I think back, because I haven't been on anything that long that we didn't take a break on, even a creator-owned book. So it was just like you're just going 100 miles an hour all the time. You're in like a crazy car ride together. You're just like, do not take your foot off the gas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you brought it every issue.
It's also if you guys have, we always try and give you guys a chance to ask questions.
Yeah.
If you have it, you don't have to. We can, obviously, we have plenty of stuff we can
As
talk.
you know, Scott can talk. So.
Yes.
Over the floor. You got
Let's
it.
open up the floor, you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, step right up to the microphone. There it is.
For you, Scott, I saw some early concept art for Absolute Batman you made that included a dog.
Yeah.
Like you removed it. What was the thought process?
Oh yes, in one of the early concept things, Nick wanted to give Bruce a dog in Absolute Batman, and it was a really cute dog, and I just thought it was too cute. I wanted him to be really tough. I was like, I felt bad, but I was like, no, it's too cute. The Nightwing has a dog. The Absolute Batman does not have a dog.
Sorry, this is a question for Scott as well.
Sure.
You're writing DCKO right now.
Yeah.
For the very powerful version of Darkseid you have, this is just in the same spirit of like, who's stronger? Who do you think would be stronger? Like fifth dimensional being like Mixie or Bat Knight or the current Darkseid with all the power he has?
The current Darkseid, because he exists almost outside of space and time. You gotta see, it's in issue 1.
Okay.
In October, you'll get power scaling all over the place. The whole event is like big fisticuffs. It's like really fun. It's like, I thought it was so funny because I was talking to Josh, and it was like, Marvel's done like, Avengers vs. X-Men and Secret Wars and all these and Civil War and whatever, and what's ours? And I was like, oh, we've never done it. It was like, all right, there we go. Ding ding, let's do it. And we wanted to make it really fun, so it's also like, it's not grim. It's not like they're fighting over a political issue or something or whatever. It's like, to get as strong as Darkseid, you have to enter this cosmic tournament and generate enough like angry, sort of chaotic conquest energy to become like him. See, it is exactly like the video game. It's really fun, but So they have to kind of become him to defeat him. So it's gonna be nuts. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So this is for both of you. What is the one character that when you get to work on brings you the most amount of joy?
I get asked that all the time. And the answer I say is, I wanted to draw superhero comics since I was about 7 or 8 years old. And so the fact that that dream came true is enough for me. So I've had a great time working on every single character I've been lucky enough to have. But I would say that if I had to connect this to where you get the answer you want from me, the closest thing I could say is my mother showed me a drawing I did of Batman Ron when I was 4 years old. It was from the animated opening sequence of the TV show. And the fact that I grew up and eventually drew Batman professionally is pretty mind-blowing. So if I want to answer that, I would say, well, then Batman for that one particular reason. But honestly, I'm just blessed and lucky that I was able to live my dream and do all these books. So I'm just, I'm just grateful for all of them. So they're all wonderful.
I mean, Batman's my favorite. When somebody asks me like, who wins in a fight, like Hulk or Spider-Man, it's like Batman.
Let's go.
Good.
This is for Greg. You guys started off the panel by talking about the collaboration process, and Scott talked about how he you still have a lot to learn, right? And you're still fairly green at it, and Greg, you're fairly set in your ways, right? Give me the important details, right? So Greg, I want to know if there's anything that you learned about your process in collaborating with Scott that you might have taken away from that and changed your approach a little bit.
Yeah, I had to learn how to cram artwork into panels. Honestly, that's what the hardest part of working with them. I would have to really put a lot of labor into the layouts and go, how do I accommodate all these words? And I'm not to stab at them. I told them many years ago, I go, if you don't look back at these early issues and you're not embarrassed by how overworded this is, then you could not learn anything.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
So to me, I think I'm a flexible person, but I had to be flexible, and because I knew from the start it wouldn't be right for Scott to conform entirely to my way of what I've been used to. That wouldn't be fair. Just like it wouldn't have been fair for him to expect me to just abandon it and go, okay, now I'm a full script guy. You don't need me then. You just need a grasp person. So if I had to say I had to learn anything outside of my little my little joke against Scott is just the importance of flexibility, because it's a team sport, and you're not always going to get, and it goes past just writer, penciler. It goes into who's coloring your book and everything. You won't always agree with everything that you see. You have to have the flexibility to let it go and let your other teammates who you work with them because you like them. So let them do what it is that they do. And if I agree, fantastic. If I don't, still let it ride. And it's where the car we're going. So it's just maintaining flexibility is probably the biggest takeaway.
It's a good thing you've been drowning your babies too.
Thank you. Hey, good morning. So I'm wondering what both of your opinions are on this. Individuals and creators who are very deeply ingrained and knowledgeable on certain characters versus those who are maybe newer and have fresher outlooks on those characters, and how those two kind of blend or meld and how they can sort of inform one another.
You mean like just fans, or?
Just like coming out creatively, like a writer or artist.
Well, I'm telling you, I'm impressed by how much he knows about the universes in which he writes. I mean, he's like a library. And I've never been so knowledgeable on any character as he has been with everything he does. He's like a maniac, yeah, we're in different ways. We're different maniacs. So I mean, in that regard, he's a wealth of all these bits that fans will recognize that I didn't know, like the purple gloves and all this stuff. I wasn't paying attention to it. So he knows all that. So there's some satisfaction that he could deliver to the fans. And I don't think you have to have one or the other, like you said, a newer person who doesn't know all this stuff in order to come up with a newer and fresh idea. And a good case in point is just the whole idea of supportive ops.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so he's a very knowledgeable, and in that way, it enabled him to come up with something fresh and new that hadn't been done before, but that just seamlessly fit in with the Batman lore. So, I don't think they are, you can't create anything new and fresh if you have all this wealth of information, vice versa. In this instance of working with this guy, his wealth enabled him to come up with these fresh and new angles. So that's my answer.
Yeah, my favorite things, I think the way I approach it are like, my favorite things that are now canonized are always the things that kind of break the rules a little bit and have done things that have pushed the character somewhere new and have been upsetting but also inspiring, from Dark Knight Returns to Birthright to Superman, All-Star Superman, to like all these things. And so, understanding the context of the character is important, but that said, like only in that you can tell the story that you really want to do, and that might mean breaking those rules. Because one thing you should understand if you're ever going to write superheroes or have anything to do with them, there's nothing you're going to do that's not going to upset one contingent of the fan base. If you write Batman and Catwoman is not in it, all the Batcat people hate you. If she is in it, the people that don't like that, they all hate you. Like there will always be a contingent that is mad.
You wrote it.
Yeah, right. So you cannot operate that way, or you will drive yourself crazy and you will write the safest, most boring thing in the world. So it has to be like, all my knowledge is literally to be like, what can I make that I care the most about? That's new, that's mine, that makes me feel like this is the story I wish I picked up on the shelf that day.
Worse than hate is indifference.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
How indifferent you are.
That's true. When you'd be upset about some of the online stuff, I'd go, as long as 51% of them are on your side, you're winning.
51 is like right on the line. I always wanted a little more than that. It never comforted me. I mean, I was like, are you saying it's only 51%? What poll? Where's the poll?
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hey,
Hey,
nice to meet you.
you too.
It says here in the little author's blurb and illustrator's blurb for you that Scott Snyder, you're a dedicated, unironic fan of Elvis Presley.
I am.
And Greg Capullo, you've worked on CD covers for the bands Disturbed and Korn.
And 5 Figure Death Punch,
Oh, really?
Iced Earth, yeah.
I'm a huge fan of that.
Yeah.
Which covers have you done?
For 5 Figure,
Yeah.
it's what the right side of heaven.
Oh, yeah.
Wrong with that one.
Oh, wow. That's a really good cover. I love that.
Thank you.
But, does music affect your writing art styles at all?
I don't know, metal's just in my veins, so, they'll know what do you listen to, and it's whatever tracks in my head. But sometimes it'll just be a segment of a song, that will loop for whatever, the guitar solo or a segment or a grind or whatever. And so I usually don't have any live music playing on any machine behind me or anything like that. It's always just here. So I don't know if it affects it. Maybe it does, metal is an attitude, as you know. And so that attitude probably comes through in my work in some way, I can't see my own work, as you guys see it. And just, because it's just me, So you have to tell me if you see the music in the work, but I'm a metal guy, so.
Oh, yeah, I definitely see that hardcore aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As for Scott, I highly doubt that Elvis inspired his absolute Batman.
Oh no, he definitely does. Like, yeah, I mean, for me, I fell in love with like Elvis when I was a teenager because my parents, they put me in this like fancy prep school after growing up pretty working class up to a certain point when I was about 14, and I hated it. And I was like, what can I like that no other kid is gonna like in this fancy New York City school? Yeah, pretty much. And it was like Elvis. It's like and so I liked it as a joke at first, and then I actually fell in love with all of the early 50s music, Sun Sessions and Muddy Waters and Helen Wolf and Johnny Cash and all those guys. And what I loved about it was that this was this kid that had nothing going for him, that was like dirt poor, pimples, and went to school dressed like a rock star and already believed in himself. And as somebody who wanted to be a comic book writer or artist, didn't have any way of doing that or know how to do it, it gave me a tremendous amount of confidence. And so it really became like more than just like I like that music. It was like I was an anxious, nervous, shy kid, and it gave me like tremendous sort of strength for myself. I'm gonna be like that. I want to have that same sense of Elvis. And one of my greatest memories, like Greg, we were just saying last night, we got to go to Graceland together when we went to the Memphis thing. But my kids are, I mean, like, it is definitely
Yeah, I'm
ironic.
not a big Elvis fan. I mean, I like Elvis movies, grew up in Miami, but going to Graceland with him was one of the most fun times I've ever had, one of the greatest memories, and you can't have a better
I know all the
curator,
stories.
because, they had a person, but Scott's like, here's what they're leaving out.
It's all good stuff.
I'm telling you, there would be nobody more qualified than this guy.
I love I love him, and I love the whole moment also from then. Like, I love all of it. So it's played a very big part in my life. Like, him and a lot of those contemporaries, Jerry Lee Lewis and all of them. I love that whole moment of like a new thing forming. It's a blend of blues and everybody involved and all of the problematic aspects and the inspiring aspects, everything about it. It's exciting to me.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I want to say thank you for being here and also opening yourselves up to us. It's very insightful, and also the inspiration that you guys have given us as fans, but also the industry as well. It makes ripple effects.
Thank you.
It really, really does make an effort. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
My question is, in times of stress with work or life, what does you guys as a close group of creators do to help bring each other together and create a bond out of that experience?
I have a pretty isolated existence, man. So I have no answer for that. Any stressful thing, I go through that more by myself. And,
Well, we talk a lot though. I mean, like, I call you
Well,
when I'm
right, you do, and with an ass like this. He'll be stressed out, did I do a good job? And I'll go, it's okay, it's just okay, and I won't answer for a while, My wife sees what I'm doing, she's such a jerk. Yeah, what do you torture him like that? It drives me crazy. I go, well, that's why. I go, I'm like his big brother, this guy's, the asshole, And so,
Sometimes you need that immovable object.
yeah. So I will constantly, and I keep on the string, like, it's the best thing ever. Oh, now the rest. So, yeah, when he goes through those threads, I actually torture him. I don't help him at all.
No, I mean, like, when I go through, if I'm going through something like real in life, like, he knows about it. We talk to each other.
Yeah, our real stuff, that's not, that's stressful, right? The comic book stuff is, but if there's because we're close now, so if there's a health crisis or relationship thing or like, then we try and, help each other, and we're there for each other to, each shoulder, in here. Yeah, we lose a car for that most of the time, but tons more, but we've always been there for each other if there's anything like that, personal level, Scott's like a younger brother to me,
Yes.
Thank you guys.
Sure.
Hey.
Hi, I would like to first start off by saying thank you to you and Greg, because you guys wrote the very first Batman comic that I ever read. And I literally read that story multiple times.
Great.
Thank you.
Didn't read anything else for a while. My question is for Scott. For Absolute Batman number 10, page 6, Bruce steps in like this little monster-like thing. And I couldn't really fully comprehend who it was supposed to be by the art. I was wondering if that was supposed to be Clayface, and if that wasn't Clayface, do you have any ideas of if you're gonna bring Clayface into that story? I'm really interested after Freeze and ID.
Yeah, we're definitely bringing, it is affiliated with Clayface, and we are bringing Clayface in NIE really soon. So there's the way that art
On page.
It's awesome.
It's amazing, it's like a superpower.
The whole idea of what they're hiding of those people in Arkham is a big mystery that's going to be unfolded really soon in issue 17, 18, 19.
Thank you.
You got it.
Professor Scott knows exactly what.
I know.
Someone, I don't know.
I know exactly.
how you doing, guys? I've been a fan of comic books and heavy metal music since I'm like 10 years old, 1989. And my question is kind of about music. I know Greg's a big metalhead. I thought both of you guys would just spitball some of your favorite bands at me right now. I like Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, Slayer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, when I was a young guitar player, you know, like my cousin taught me my first song, which was Heart of Gold, Neil Young, on acoustic guitar, right? And so there was older boys in the neighborhood who were all playing in metal bands and stuff like that. And so like the first couple songs I learned were like A Hole in the Sky, System of the Universe. Yes. And so those were like, that was my, you know, introduction into metal. And then a friend of mine had an older brother who had all the metal albums. And he introduced me to Judas Priest with Unleashed in the East, which I played every day before school and in my car. And so Judas Priest was probably like the most influential band in my life growing up. And I saw them more than any other band in concert ever. And so I would say that was the one that really put the hook in my, and kept the hook in my lip. But I love it. But everybody knows I like Zach, and he's just a beast of a guitar player. But I've gone through periods where I've listened to stuff like Obituary. I'm a little too old now to have that kind of hair. The light of the Lord. You know, so but yeah, I've been across the board. But probably most of the bands, you know, I'll tell you something painful. I was so busy with work. Iron Maiden approached me to do an album cover in some kind of a booklet or something. You know, not too long back, a few months ago, listen to your thing, and I had to turn it down. Yeah. I had to turn it down because I just didn't have the time. But so all that stuff, because that's sort of my era. You know, I was old enough to see Randy Rhoads play with Ozzy Osbourne and stuff. So, yeah, I like a love for Five Finger Death Punch. You know, they've got a little commercial for me now, but yeah, probably most of the bands you've been named are ones I would say, yeah, they're awesome.
I mean, I like metal through him, but I grew up with like I said, like Johnny Cash, all that stuff. I always loved the oldies, and then I was a big '90s hip hop guy. I was like the era of like Tribe Called Quest and Wu-Tang and Brand Nubian and all of that. Like, so I love that. Yeah, and then now, I mean, I've always liked punk also. So I like looking for like little bands now. So.
Oh, Punk's great, man. I discovered Green Day before they became commercial. You know, I had their early stuff.
Yeah, and I mean,
Blanc and stuff. Nobody knew they were, and I was telling all my friends, you know, it wasn't until Dookie that they were, hey, you hear this new band, you know? So yeah, Punk's cool too, you know.
Yeah.
That's what Beatles had that old.
Yeah, he's a big Beatles guy.
So you know, I listen to all kinds of music. You know, I listen to rock and roll too. Like Dirty Honey Band is a great new rock and roll band that I like. You know, so yeah, I listen to all kinds of stuff. And like you said, he's been baptized a bit into the metal.
Oh yeah, and I mean, my kids. It's funny because they like, you know, I like. These days, I'm always looking for like new punk bands and that stuff, and that just for fun. I'm old, but still like, you know, Idols and Rag the Boys, and you know.
When I was younger, I just listened to all the heavy stuff, and now my favorite band is probably Rush.
Yeah.
My wife's a Rush.
Yeah.
Again, thank you so much for being here. I'm
Yeah.
curious, as two people who have worked so intimately on Batman, as a character, what does he mean to you?
Well, I mean, he means a lot to me. Like, you know, Batman was the first character that really made me brave. You know, growing up in the city in the 80s, reading Dark Knight Returns, he was like the first. I was 9. He was like the first superhero that felt like he's being brave in the face of the things that I'm afraid of, like nuclear war and the Russians and all of these things. And in core, what I've realized over time is like that's all he is, right? Out of all the heroes, like Superman is this god who like believes in us so that we believe in ourselves, and like Wonder Woman is yet another kind of like a god who like leads us towards our better angels. Like she's more like, let's do this way. Batman just does not care like what you think about him. He's just, what I love about him is it's like he's a boy who suffers this tremendous trauma and then says whatever you have suffered in your life, you use that as fuel to get up and win and to make the world better. And that's all it is. You can take away Alfred, you can take away the cars, you can take away the money. And that's why I feel like he's so resonant with so many people, because he's human, and that's the whole message of him. Regardless. Woo-hoo! It's all it is. It's like whatever knocked you down, you get back up and you knock that down twice as hard. And people love that. That's why they love when he's awesome. That's the key to him too. It's like even Lego Batman is one of my favorites because the joke of him is great, where it's like he gets up and he wins because you deeply want him to win because there's actually like a real profundity in that. Like when Batman winning and being awesome is overcoming trauma. That's what he is. Like that's what he exists to tell you that you can do.
I agree to that. I agree with that entirely. To me, it's like, you know, we all, or many of us, and I am among them, have suffered terrible things in the early part of your life. Not as terrible as seeing your parents get gunned down in front of you, right? And so you've seen it, we've all seen it, and then probably different parts of my life I've been there, where you can use that as a victimhood, and whether you indulge it with alcohol or drugs or whatever. So you choose the road of victimhood, and it's the easiest road to ever take, because no matter what happens, you go, well, this is because this happens, right? And so Bruce could have easily gone down that road, the easy road of victimhood, but he chose to be a victor instead of a victim. And so, like Scott says, you get up, and no matter how many times but that was his decision, you know what I mean? He had a crossroads, and he could have easily gone, we see how many people do go that other way, and they stay on that road until they die. And so that's the difference, and to me, that's what he means. And that he's able to go around and outside the law, because we've all probably faced injustice at some point in our life, and he's able to get something done about it, where we would have been just, I got screwed, and he can make it around. And so we live vicariously through him in that way too.
All right, we're running over a bit, so let's make the last ones rapid fire, all right?
Okay.
Sure.
I had a little question for all three guys. Life on the line, right? No limitations. Who's winning in a fight, one-on-one? Damien or Dick?
Ooh.
Size matter.
I mean, Dick would never win. Like he would let. I mean, I feel like he would let Damien win in that way too. He couldn't take down Damien. He loves Damien, so I honestly think Damien might win that one. Yeah.
Dick.
I know we're all talking about Batman, but we have Demons you guys did together. During that series. Any talks of doing more with that or other creator stuff together in the future?
You never know. I don't rule anything out really entirely. We're hoping to see something we've done with We Have Demons actually.
Yeah, it just got picked up, so yeah, we'll see.
Hello, this is a question for all three of you again. Recently, I feel that in young comics, I feel like there's been a bit more of a shift for writing and creating for the trades versus single issues. And how does it feel to you? Like, because you guys definitely seem to be a lot more single issue inclined, but
Yeah.
How does the differences feel to you in creating for this?
I mean, we've always been really single issue inclined. I've never changed that. I mean, when I was doing stuff, it depends on the format, right? Like when you do a mini series, it's designed for trade, but still, if it's coming out not as one big thing, I'm always like, every issue has to hook you and get you back. So I mean, all three of us are built in that trial by fire. Like DC, when we started there, was also much more maniacal about that. Dan and Jeff and those guys were like, if it's not selling, you're gonna get fired. So there was a lot of like, how do you make sure every issue really hits? So yeah, I think especially in times like this where the economics are rougher, you come back to those priorities, and I think you're seeing a return to that kind of that sensibility in a lot of stuff right now.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, it was awesome.